Hello my lovely viewers of the World Wide Web, and welcome to the Star Wars Month KOTOR edition. And I might as well just get this out of the way as a forewarning. This year's Star Wars Month is most likely going to be a Star Wars marathon. And why is that? Because for this particular Star Wars Month, we're going to be looking at a series of RPGs. And since RPGs take a long time to complete in regards to other games, which would take about maybe, 3 to 8 hours to complete, like the Jedi games, or maybe Battlefront and Republic Commando, these games can take up to about 30 or even 60 hours to complete. So I would like you all to bear with me, because we're going to go through a lot of gameplay, story, and characters. Even though I probably won't be sacrificing a lot of my time looking at the story as much as I will about the gameplay, I still want to dedicate as much time as I can to the KOTOR series in particular because, to be honest, aside from Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy, KOTOR was one of the first RPG games I ever played, and it's stuck by me as one of the most memorable Star Wars games, as well as just RPGs ever. And the interesting thing about KOTOR is that it's not a typical RPG that's turn-based, like Final Fantasy or South Park: The Stick of Truth. And it's not even a 3D RPG kind of game like, I said, Kingdom Hearts or even the Fallout games. This one takes a little bit of Final Fantasy, but also a little bit of Kingdom Hearts, but they make it their own kind of thing. But it's not only just the gameplay, the story itself is also its own thing. It doesn't take place in the prequels, the sequel trilogy, or even the original trilogy. It takes place far, far into the distant past of 4,000 years ago before the Phantom Menace. And the interesting thing about KOTOR is that it's structured very much like a Dungeons & Dragons kind of game, and I've never really played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons. I mean, I've indulged in it several times before, but I've never really been a big fan of it, so I'm kind of curious to see how much the Dungeons & Dragons gameplay can mix itself into a Star Wars game. Is it good? Will it be unique? Will it be replayable enough for other players to come on board who are new to the RPG series? Well, why don't we take a look at the development? Developed by the now infamous BioWare, known for their fantastically expressive art form, LucasArts announced a partnership with BioWare in 2000 for a Star Wars RPG that would be released for the PC and the 6th generation of console gaming, notably the Xbox. The game was to set the Star Wars story 4,000 years before the events of Episode 1, The Phantom Trilogy, a piece of history that had never been touched before, and design a story and game based around the ancient war between the Republic and Sith. Because the team was given an additional amount of creative freedom, it allowed writers to develop a more enriching story that was similar to the films, but had its own style and substance to it. Gameplay-wise, they wanted to aim for a game that would take roughly 60 hours to complete at the most, since BioWare's previous games such as Baldur's Gate and Neverwinter Nights took roughly 100 hours each to complete. It's a typical RPG adventure after all, which means there's a lot to go into in terms of grinding sessions, hence why this year's Star Wars Month will most likely take 2 months to get through. Mind you, I only want to cover the very basics of the story and focus mainly on the gameplay. Why? Because even though the story is well known and most people know about the twists and turns that occur in the game, I don't want to have to spoil too much of the experience of what happens and how it happens. You can tell another gamer how much of a shock it was when Blank was revealed to be Blank's mother, or how they were originally this guy, but the feeling of experiencing it for yourself is something that's unique to the player alone. I'll mention some other story elements such as character interactions, but what they say is something I'll leave up to you. I'm just going to be talking from experience and opinion. With that said, let's strap on those lightsabers, prepare the ships for battle, and dive into the story of KOTOR. By the way, spoilers ahead. Skip the story if you want the gameplay review. The Galactic Empire is up to its wascally ways again, as newly appointed Sith dictator, Darth Malak, has declared war across the galaxy, and has mounted a surprise Sith armada against the Republic with a gigantic weapons factory / space station. With the Republic scattered and many Jedi left vulnerable to the corruption of the evil Sith Lord, the Republic becomes desperate to recruit as many soldiers and mercenaries into their allegiance. One of many happens to be you, who I've decided to call Revan for absolutely no foreshadowing events. You have been tasked to become a soldier under the command of Jedi Knight Bastila, a warrior who has the power to influence armies to overpower opposing threats. Essentially, she gives them a buff to their confidence and strength, kind of like how cheerleaders raise the morale of jocks and their lower regions. On a direct course to Taris, however, the ship you and Bastila are boarding is attacked by Sith battleships, and with the help of Mr. Throwaway and the ever-charming Cartho Nasi, you manage to escape to the surface of Taris. Now, since the Sith have declared martial law on Taris and are still on the hunt for Bastila, you are then tasked in trying to rescue the Jedi Knight from a group of kidnappers who refer to themselves as swoop bikers. And since the Sith aren't allowing ships to take off, you also have to find a way to make it off the planet with Bastila while avoiding any trouble with the Sith. It seems overwhelming, what with just you and Karth being the main characters, but along the way, depending on what kind of jobs you do around the planet, the kind of locals you can meet, and with the experience in killing and extorting lower city gang members, you can run across identifiable characters that will join your group for one reason or another. Among one of the many denizens of Taris you'll come across is Mission Veo, a troublemaking Twi'lek with a good heart who will join your team to help save a Wookiee friend, Zolbar, who in return joins you temporarily when he swears a life debt to you as thanks for saving him. Every character you'll come across has some reason or another for joining your party. Sometimes it's based on ownership, but mainly it's because, depending on how you interact with them, you can convince them to join up with you and help save the galaxy. And as you go along, you might get a little prompt telling you that they have something on their mind, and this can lead to some bits of character development, which makes the journey of the game all the more interesting, if not a little interrupting at points when you're in the middle of a mission and you just want to get a move on, but more on that later. Eventually, you're able to save Bastila after participating in a swoop race, and through some little odd jobs that you must complete for the Mandalorian mercenary, Canderous Auto, he will take you to crime boss Davik King, who just so happens to have a not Millennium Falcon ship lying about. And as soon as you get to his estate, the Sith decide to wipe the planet clean with laser fire in order to get rid of Bastila. The group manages to escape to Dantooine, where you are then greeted and trained by the Jedi Council to become a Jedi. The reason for this? You and Bastila are a Tumblr couple. I mean soulmates. I mean you and her share a bond of fate with each other through the Force via these visions that the player experiences whenever you reach a new planet or complete a certain primary goal. The visions themselves display battles between Bastila and the Dark Lord of Malak, but I don't see anyone that looks like my charmingly good self in these flashbacks, so I guess it's just by complete fucking happenstance that I'm sharing these visions at all. Among one of these visions is a location of an ancient artifact called the Star Map, and within these star maps holds the location of the previously mentioned gigantic battle station, which is revealed to be called the Star Forge. And from that point on, it's a one-way journey to go from one planet to the other and locate these star maps to find the location of Malak and his Star Forge, destroy it once and for all, and save the galaxy from disaster. The interesting thing about this story, for me at least, is that it has a lot of focus on this great weapon and how Malak and his master went from being competent Jedi Knights to sudden Sith Lords due to their ambitious natures. There's a bunch of talk about how morality, curiosity, and lust for power turns people over to the dark side, and for one thing, this is nothing new to Star Wars fans of today. It's pretty commonplace. What makes the journey throughout the game, though, is the interactions between characters and their own viewpoints in the game. Because for the most part, how they perceive what the light side and dark side is and how it affects them, the people around them, is all the more engaging and deep. Every character you bring along with you on your mission to find the star map has something interesting to say regarding the mission at hand. Or hell, it might not even be about the mission. When you level up and gain experience, your party members will display forms of trouble or worry, and when you open them up to you, you begin to feel a real sense of understanding of what these characters are going through, how the war 5 years prior affected their homes, families, their sense of place in the galaxy, and why it's turned out for the better or the worse. That all depends though on your interactions with them, and in true BioWare fashion and form, your interactions, displayed through various dialogue, can have an effect on your teammates and how they'll respond to you. If you decide to listen and be understanding, your teammates will warm up to you and consider you a truly worthwhile leader. But if you decide to be a complete douchebag and call them names, slander their stories, or just provoke them into saying something that makes them sound ugly, you are gonna be a stingy motherfucker. Now, does this impact the gameplay? Not really. In fact, no matter what you say to your teammates, they'll stick by you no matter what. In fact, morality in this game isn't something that earns too many buffs to your abilities, except specific armor, but more on that later. It just demonstrates how much of a dick or a saint you are. Now, toward the end of the game, when you get captured and placed on the Leviathan with Bastila and Karth, when you make an escape to the Ebon Hawk, you're confronted by Darth Malak, who promptly reveals to you and Karth that you were his master. What? See, on the battleship where you fought Bastila as Darth Revan, Malak had plans to turn on you and he promptly opened fire on your ship, causing you to become unconscious. Now, since the Jedi Council saw this as an opportunity to recruit you back into their arms and to find the Starforge, they promptly had your memory rebuilt and you maintained memories of your time as Revan, but you were recognized as a different person. Hence why you were able to have these visions, why you and Bastila had a connection through the Force, and why you were able to become a Jedi so quickly and effectively. Now, as a kid, I did not see this coming. Like, legitimately good twist. It was one I could probably see coming nowadays, but the way it was built up, the way the game left clues right in front of you and you never technically saw Revan's face behind that mask, and given the fact that the Jedi were playing dumb and a whole new bit of history had been built up for you, this was a good twist. It remains a part of one of my favorite moments in gaming, to find out that you were once a great dictator with so much power, stripped away from your dick-headed, mouth-plated apprentice, and now here you are yet again on the verge of reclaiming your rightful place, or staying true to your allegiance. It's so friggin' good to remember all of that and experience it once again. So after all of that sudden realization, Bastila is captured by Malak and converted into a Sith Lord herself, and after finding the last star map and making your way to a forgotten planet where the Starforge was located, you come across Bastila, who gives you the ample opportunity to suddenly turn on the Republic and join the Sith, or you can remain with the Republic and fight against both Bastila and Malak. Again, no matter where your morality is at this point, you can choose to go for either ending. It doesn't matter if you're the spitting image of Liam Neeson or the reincarnation of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Any ending is open right here. An ending which can cause you to either kill off your teammates and become the Dark Lord of the Sith once more, rather sporadically, or board the Starforge itself and take on the Dark Lord himself and claim a victory for the Republic. The choice is yours, and I'm gonna stop here. There's a ton of things I can go into with this story about morality, what the characters think of your actions, the kind of aliens and residents of different planets think about the war. I could go into all of that, but this is a friggin' RPG. You need to be dedicated and persistent as fuck to take the time to learn everything about what the game throws at you, and it's nothing I find unbearable, far from it. The subject matters in this game is something I wholly enjoy. In fact, the best parts about this game for me are the character interactions and their reactions to the worlds around them. How do they feel about Churka Corporation enslaving Wookiees? How do they feel about discrimination and bigotry towards aliens on Taris? The neutrality among the citizens and the government of Manaan. I like listening to the conflicting and resonating opinions and discussions that my teammates can provide when I visit these places. It makes the world feel more alive, like you're going on a world trip with friends and they're making brief commentary on the things around them and how it affects their outlook and thinking. I also like how they interact off of each other. I like how Bastila tries to convince Jolee to contribute to the Jedi Council. I like the father-daughter relationship between Karth and Mission. It's all very compelling and even sometimes kind of funny. My favorite character out of the bunch has to be HK-47. He's an assassin robot who has a personality of a sociopathic machine and damn it, his line of dialogue is the best when talking about people he doesn't like. It's so Eric Cartman or Archer-like.
He's expressing disbelief, as am I, but his duty requires that he report to his chieftain. Extrapolation. It would seem that we are at least worthy of curiosity for the moment. I would much rather this get bloody, Master, but it is your call.
Now, I don't think this game stands in terms of contributing discussion to anything game-changing or critically acclaimed story-driven narratives with various subject matters, but I still think the game stands as a testament to doing something familiar and kind of predictable structure, but it's done well to surprise enough people, keep them immersed in the world, and invested in the characters. Now that I've finished covering the story, it's time to look at BioWare's attempts at creating a Star Wars RPG game with the Dungeons & Dragons gameplay mechanic. Now, like I said, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is very different to most RPGs in that it does still kind of technically have the turn-based strategy where you pick an attack and then you deliver that attack and then you wait until the enemy has their turn to pick their attack and then you just sort of go back and forth on that. But you go a little bit more live in the action. You have a little bit more free reign to do what you want with the combat. But how does the gameplay do that with the Dungeons & Dragons mechanic by introducing the 20-sided die mechanic? Shall we look at the gameplay? The first of many instances that you'll see this game use is the Dungeons & Dragons gameplay through the combat, the skills, and the conversation with NPCs. Think of the 20-sided die as a scale that shows how well you can effectively deliver a strike against an opponent. a chance of unlocking a door, dismantling a mine, or repairing a sentry droid, or being persuasive enough to key figures to give you access to certain players, or to just give you information that you're seeking. So, for example, I could have my main character battle against these mutants on the planet Tatooine. I have a selection of attacks, force powers, and grenades that I can use to attack them with. Say I wanted to use my critical strike that dealt, say, 16 points of damage, and the monster had 59 health. I would roll the die and... Okay, let's say for now that number demonstrates if I got an accurate hit. If I got more rolls like that, or got as far as 20, which enabled me to land a critical hit on my opponent. However, if the number of the die is displayed as 5 or below, meaning a poor attack or a miss, there's a chance that could be because I'm either not strong enough, my character is inflicted with a debuff such as poison, freezing, or other force abilities, or it could be invulnerability from enemies. At the beginning of the game, you're obviously not going to be at your strongest. Your attacks will become weak until you either level up and increase your abilities based on strength, dexterity, or vitality, or you can save up money from random encounters to buy new weaponry, stock up on items that can buff up your status, complete side quests for other characters to earn more experience. It's D&D in a nutshell if nothing else. This doesn't just extend to combat though. Sometimes, in order to access new parts of the game or to convince NPCs to hand you information or get you access to places, you'll need to talk to them. And if you have a good amount of charisma or persuasion, who knows what kind of info you can learn. Again though, this is inherent of both skill and luck. See, you may have a good amount of persuasion skill on you and it may rack up your chances, but the moment you know the dice roll is not in your favor, some things can turn ugly, and these are the parts of the game that make it personally infuriating, because you can just feel how much that dice is taunting you the moment all the gaming code didn't roll the way you wanted that dice to roll. Of course, there's always the option to save scum your progress if things don't turn out the way you want, and believe me, the endgame tends to do that to you. But I believe that if you take time with this game and grow accustomed to how the battle gameplay, talking mechanic, and the various companions that you can link up with and play as will help tip the scales in your favor. Oh yeah, you can switch between characters in this game, and every party member has a unique skill to them that makes the journey of the planets you visit and the bases you raid all the more unique. Mission can use her skills to unlock doors, slice computer terminals, and make one hell of a great mine detector. Zolbar is an absolute tank, Canderous does what the Republic can't, Juhani can be Solid Snake. I have a hefty team of motherfuckers.
You never see it coming. You see that my mind is too fast for eyes.
Of course, there are times when you can also talk with your teammates, and like I said, depending on how you interact with them, or how you interact with anyone else for that matter, you can be a straight up Dr. Phil and earn light side points, or a straight up Joseph Kony and earn dark side points. Now this in itself doesn't earn you the right to earn specific light side or dark side powers, because I played through the whole game in a morally good journey, and I was still able to obtain Force Lightning with no one in-game commenting on the fact that I had something specifically dark. I mean, if it gets shit done, who am I to complain? What it does do though is give you access to specific weapons or armor. When you enter the Sith planet Korriban, you can find artifacts that are specifically designed to enhance dark side users. And at first I thought you could just equip them like any other piece of armor you came across or obtain from defeating fallen Sith and bosses. I mean, I managed to kill Darth Bandon, one of the biggest douches in KOTOR boss history, and I got to wear his armor with no infliction of morally bad driven effects, so why do I have to be specifically bad to wear this shit? Aside from that, the morality system is just a form of trolling before it was a cool thing to do on the internet, and that's fine I guess, I understand the design. It's just something that personally pisses me off. I mean, I could just equip all the specific armor to the only dark side character I have, but I don't bring him with me enough times. Aside from that, you can also upgrade anything you find such as armor or weapons to be stronger. And it's kind of self-explanatory really, more damage, debuff effects to your enemies, etc, etc. Oh yeah, there's also recreational things you can do, such as swoop racing. I mean, it's not Star Wars pod racing, but it does its job, I guess. And then there's Berserk. Fuck Berserk, it's fucking broken and it's all based on luck. I'm sure there's a way to exploit it, but I'm already invested in a convoluted as fuck card game already, so fuck off. Okie dokie, so this next set of complaints that I'm going to have about the game is something that personally affected me when I was playing the game. And this is nothing to do with the length or the chance factor due to the D&D gameplay mechanic. I have to take those things into a factor, but some of these things that did affect me in the wrong way were quite effective. First of many problems I would like to address is the bosses. Now when you start off and face against some of these characters, they're not overly hard nor piss poor easy to defeat. I think they have a decent amount of challenge and difficulty to them that allows them to become fair fights when utilizing all the correct abilities, but fuck me if I could find the endgame bosses anything worth fair. I am not kidding when I say there is a fucking overabundance of debuff status and constant times when not just the main boss, but every accompanying soldier or dark Jedi will just decimate you with plasma grenades and force abilities that prevent you from attacking upwards to 50 seconds. Even when I save scummed enough times, seconds before encountering these guys just to buff myself up with armor, battle stimulants, force valor, and shields, they still kick my ass and then some. Even when I try to go to another planet, they keep fucking following me around and stop me from grinding enemies. It's just like, fuck off, man, leave me alone. Also, it's a bit irritating that when you start off, you don't exactly have a great amount of speed to traverse these places. I know, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you have to constantly backtrack to do a thing you forgot to do, and you have to do it all this slow walking, it's just... You kind of wish this game had moments when you could teleport wherever you want, and you do kind of have that ability, but it's limited to just jumping back to the Ebon Hawk or to the places you last teleported from. Also, while I don't mind talking with my compatriots, I kind of wish the game would allow me to talk with them after a mission is over, or when we're at safe houses, and you can still do that, but you can also talk to them while on a mission. And while I would like to know more about them, I also don't want to be interrupted when I have shit to do. I mean, I could ignore them and just talk to them later, but then I would still have to sit through a slog of dialogue to know all of them when I talk to them later. So it helps that I would want to have bits and pieces of information fed to me at one time. Speaking of talking, this is going to sound galactically racially insensitive, but no offense to any and all aliens in the Star Wars universe, but all of your structured vocabulary sounds the exact fucking same. Overall, however, I thoroughly enjoy KOTOR. I think there's fun to be had not just for Star Wars fans, but fans of D&D and RPGs. The gameplay is well executed for a new Star Wars gameplay, the story is pretty engaging, the characters are well written and voice acted, and the game looks pretty good for a 2003 game. Now I love this game, but I don't imagine coming back to play this for some time in the future. RPGs are a lot of fun when you can put the time into it, but at the age where I won't see myself putting time and effort into every game I come across, I hope to come back and try something new out with a dark side run. Whether that happens or not remains to be said. There's only so many times that a man can replay so much of one RPG and keep going with it. I must have played this game like a gajillion times as a kid, and there was only so many times I could go back to this game in particular to replay it for the sake of completing it and getting gameplay footage for you lot so I could talk about what I enjoyed. And honestly, it tires me out quite quickly, so if I ever do get around to doing a dark side run, which, I don't know, maybe I'll do it, might do it just for shits and giggles, we'll find out. But for this next game that's coming up, this one's going to be quite interesting. So of course we're going to take a look at Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, but the reason this one is particularly interesting isn't because of the development or the way that it's handled. It's interesting because I have not completed it before, and there's a reason behind that, but more as it develops. But what I'm hoping is it actually better, or maybe just a little bit gooder? But what I'm kind of hoping is it any good, or even perhaps even a little better than the original game, and does it improve upon things that I have complaints about, and does it actually extend on the gameplay factor with the influence over party members and character interactions? We'll just have to wait and see. Until then, take care of yourselves, have a good evening, and as always, stay awesome, lovely viewers. I'll see you all next time.